Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, today being Monday, October 16th. Madam Clerk, if we could have the resolution to call the meeting to order, please.
It's moved by Councillor Bergeron, seconded by Councillor MacDonald, that the meeting of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry be hereby called to order.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Madam Clerk, the resolution to adopt the agenda.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Williams, that Council approve the agenda.
All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, thank you. Madam Clerk, the resolution for the September minutes.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Bergeron, that the minutes of the meeting, including the in-camera minutes of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, held September 18th, 2023, be adopted as circulated.
All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Today we have one delegation with us, and from the Eastern Ontario Food Network, there's Mr. Louis Belland. And before you start, Mr. Belland, if you could introduce your partner, please.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. Louis Belland, Executive Director at the Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network, and I have with me our amazing president, Sylviane Dutrisac. She also owns the Ferme Butte-et-Bin out in Williamstown. A lovely, lovely place to go if you have the chance. Does that work? That works? Perfect. So as you know, the Agri-Food Network spans the 4 regions in Eastern Ontario, so Prescott, Russell, SDG Counties, City of Cornwall, and the Ontario portion of Akwesasne. And we recently revised our messaging a little bit just to make sure that it's nice and clear for everyone. We support the development, growth, and sustainability of any and all local farming and food initiative across the region. We've been doing that since 2010 now. Part of the exercise that we did was really to speak as to the why we do what we do. And this list comes from a little bit of a strategic refresher we've had recently. But really, the one that I put in bold there is really about having the producers have greater impact, a stronger voice, and wider reach. The largest agri-food sector is dairy, grain. They have lobbies, they have powerhouses to support them. The smaller producers don't, so that's where we come in and we play a role in supporting the smaller producers. Last year I spoke to a bit of stats. One in 9 employees across Canada works in the agri-food sector, and it accounted for $134 billion of the GDP in 2021. That went up in 2022. We're talking about $144 billion, represented nationally. So it's a huge industry, and the Agri-Food Network supports the smaller players across Eastern Ontario. So numbers, I love numbers. So this is just our spring and summer. So since our AGM late March, we've made a lot of changes. So I'm reporting everything since then. 146 active members. Now last year I reported closer to 200. We cleaned those up. A lot of those members were smaller non-paying members, so 146 is a much more accurate numbers across the 4 regions. We hosted 8 events ourselves. We attended 14 partner events. We did 3, I call them corporate presentations, but the Warden's Breakfast being one of them earlier this year, RTO 9 Tourism Summit and events like that, where we presented the Agri-Food Network and what we do. So sum total, 2,000 people reached at those events. And a very important number is $130,000 of EOAN dollars reinvested in local businesses in our local economy. As you might remember, we launched the Savor East Ontario brand this spring. That is really the consumer-facing brand to promote our local producers. So with that brand, we launched a new website with over 22,000 visits, 72 local producer profiles on that website, 44 videos on our YouTube, 31 of those are promoting our local producers, 2,500 views. One very successful promotional campaign was our live segments on the Francophone radio station that covers all of Eastern Ontario. So close to 1,000 commercials and 13 live segments where we did live tasting on air of our producers' products. Socials, you can see numbers there, 102 present publications, tons of shares, 272 interactions, and over 27,000 impressions on our social networks. So Facebook, Instagram, and we do have a brand new TikTok channel. For those that want to see it, it's a learning curve for my generation. And over 3,500 reusable beeswax food wraps that we distributed. So that was something we acquired through the dissolution of La Qualité, and we managed to distribute those with a new brand. So that had quite a positive impact for our promotional. I always like to include some smiling faces. These are just a few of our SDG members. A lot of the work we've done was marketing work, so we have a lot of new content, a lot of stuff that we can use online and in marketing materials. So there's good quality pictures, good quality videos, all stuff we can use and share. In terms of where we're going for next year, the marketing platform was really our main focus this past year with a new brand. That's going absolutely flawlessly. That will continue into 2024 with increased reach and impact of our digital platforms, and we will increase our participation in local events to continue that promotion. One of the next pieces we want to work on is the capacity building for our producers. So that means a training platform, that means accessible workshops, accessible training modules. We want to focus these on 4 key elements. So 2 of those are consumer facing and 2 of those are local producer facing. So increased partnerships with schools where producers like Sylviane actually could go into a local Williamstown school and help them with their local garden or any agri-food related project. But it's about building those relationships between schools and local producers to amplify that kind of community feeling. Food waste reduction initiatives is something else that would tackle the consumer side of things. Partnerships with chefs that can teach end users, I call them end users, and teach people how to properly cook food and reuse their food and have less waste in their households. And towards our producers, climate resilient farming practices. So we're talking about pest control, we're talking about soil regeneration, soil health, and digital marketing and e-commerce, so on the business side as well. Most of our members don't even have a proper Google business profile, so they're not findable online. So that's stuff that we can help with. And lastly, an events platform. So that's two facets. We would like to organize a large-scale culinary event under the Savor East Ontario banner. And the other piece is supporting our members' events. So we have quite a few members that host events. I can think of the Apples and Arts Tour that just happened. There's a Feast of Fields. There's all sorts of wonderful events that our members host that we can amplify and we can support. So some of those require additional dollars. The training platform, we are applying for additional funding via Trillium. We are in negotiation with OMAFRA. They're going to support that as well. So big plans for next year. And the reason I'm here is for your financial support once again. The previous 3 years, SDG Counties did contribute $25,000 to the EOAN. We are asking for $35,000 for next year. It is an increase in money. However, the idea is that we standardize our approach across the entire region. So it's the exact same ask that is going to the Prescott-Russell counties and the City of Cornwall. We are operating as one regional organization. We are supporting these links between the regions. Our SDG members and Prescott-Russell members support the City of Cornwall businesses, restaurants, etc. So the goal is really to move forward as one regional organization with equitable contributions from our municipalities. Again, the why I try to keep it nice and short, but it is, I'm repeating my words: greater impact, stronger voice, and wider reach for our local producers, and we support their growth and sustainability of any local food initiatives. It doesn't have to be businesses, by the way. It's also partnerships with nonprofits. It's also any kind of initiative that supports the local food sector. I'm going to stop there. That's it. I'm 100% open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Balland. At this time, I'll open it up to questions, comments from members of council, and I see Councillor Bergeron has her hand up right off the bat.
Thank you, Warden. I have 2 items. First of all, I think it's very important for children to know where food comes from, because nowadays they just think it comes out of the grocery store and have no idea, from soil into their plate. So I support that program. But my other question is, can you give me examples of the $130,000 reinvested in our community? Can you give me examples of that?
Yes, absolutely. So any and all expense that the Agri-Food Network did was prioritized for local businesses. So I can give an example of a recent grant we had with PAFO, where it was producing those videos. So it's a local producer. We also did the translation of 7 of our member websites through that grant to make sure that they could transmit their message to the Francophone communities. So those were, for example, the organizations that did the actual work of translating were here in Cornwall. So the investment from the counties is really amplified through other grants and through other work. And all those extra dollars are spent locally. Out of our total budget, I think we spent maybe $20,000 outside of our area.
Thank you, Mr. Balland. Councillor McDonald, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I know that you said that Cornwall, SDG, and Prescott-Russell were financial partners. At the outset, you mentioned the Ontario side of Akwesasne. Are they a financial partner?
They are not. I would like them to be. As it stands, we only have 2 active members in Akwesasne, but part of our strategic realignment is to involve them a little bit more and increase that awareness.
Thank you. Councillor Densham and then Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thank you, Louis, for your presentation. It looks really good. I love the fact that we are promoting the Eastern Ontario aspect of this. What I think I'd love to hear, you asked for ideas for additional metrics, but what I think I'd love to hear is some of the voice of your 146 active members. I don't know whether you ever take a survey or something like that that says, what's the impact on the ground? A lot of the activities you're doing look like the right things to do, but you never know until they're over, and you can tweak your plans and stuff like that. So I don't know if you've ever taken a survey or try to understand what your members are saying to the work that you're doing, the impact it's ultimately having. And ideally, I'd love to see that broken down by region, if you could do that, because I'm a numbers guy too.
100%. I love that question. Actually, we every event that we host, our networking events, we we have those discussions. So it's not just myself. It's we have a member services coordinator, Juliette, who's always there as well, and we always informally poll our members as to how we're doing, what we're doing right, what they need from us. That's the big. That's my question: is what do you need from us? How can I help you? And there was discussion at our little strategic discussion a few weeks ago about how we need to put those on paper. So 100%, I'm right there with you. We will in the next little bit work on putting that on paper and marketing that as well, because that's a big piece of the messaging that was missing is that member approach as to what we do.
My hope is that will get you more members as well.
100%.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Yeah, I mean, I can speak to the value of this organization, obviously, since I sit on the board, so I know what the details of the work, the good work that gets done. And just for, the benefit of the councillors around the room, I've been actively pushing this organization to become truly regional, so that it's looking at the region as a whole, not in its parts, and then offering services that encompass the needs of the members throughout the region. And not all the members have the same needs, so they'd have to be tailored, as Louis said. But Louis, maybe if you could please speak to, are there any other organizations that serve the small producers, like the Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network? Is there any other organization out there that does that in Eastern Ontario, or anything remotely close to that? And also, what would be lost if this organization was no longer in existence? Thank you.
Oh, great question. How to keep this short. There is similar organizations out in the GTA. Farm Fresh Ontario, I believe, is what they're called. They sit at about 300 members and only have 2 or 3 out in this area. There was an initiative by Just Food out in Ottawa with their Savour Ottawa, which is, it is part of our inspiration for Savour East Ontario, but this was grant money that kind of, they achieved a nice regional map with all the producers, but it's not it's not easy on users, and that grant is over, so it's basically sitting idle. Other than that, regionally speaking, our producers do have access to the SADCs, ACC Futures and SDG Counties out in Prescott Russell for funding, but a lot of what this boils down to is the platform and the reach. So as the Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network, and especially under our new brand Savour East Ontario, it becomes a bigger identity that these producers can leverage as a platform to reach a lot more people. As a small, I might get you to jump in here. As a small producer, how many dollars can you spend on marketing, whereas how much reach could you get out of a platform like, say, I'm putting you on the spot, I'm sorry.
No, but there's no other, as a producer who recently started a business not even 3 years ago and had no tools, like I didn't know where to turn to, Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network was the only organization that actually was there to allow us to network with other organizations and to create those links and go get dollars and funding to help promote and build and continue to build our business. So even though there are other organizations, the Eastern Agri-Food Network is the only one that actually acts as the link.
Further questions, comments? So I do have a couple thoughts. Mr. Maloney, talk about the radio promotion or the notices being provided over the radio. But there's nothing on English radio, you were saying?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, I look forward to I look forward to hearing it on the English radio stations. And then you were talking about the cooking partnership, and that's something that's always been, not always, but for the longest time, it's stuck in the back of my brain, is the partnership that's needed with food banks to teach cooking and then local produce, and I really look forward to maybe some future thoughts on the cooking partnership, and then working with maybe through Tara Kirkpatrick or help that way, or at other levels. And I think of food banks and that type of partnership too. I think that's a venue that we've talked about quite often in North Dundas. We need to grow that partnership to teach people how to cook and make better use of things that are at hand locally. And my final comment is on the way into Cornwall this morning, I was listening to the North Country radio, and there was a segment about small and medium-sized farming operations that provide local for farmers markets, and by the sounds of it, they don't have an organization like this that supports them, and they were talking about how these medium-sized and smaller farms are not able to continue, and they have to close shop, if you would. So to Councillor Williams' thoughts and comments and the support mechanism that's in place, it was quite a unfortunate but fortunate for me to have that opportunity to listen to the radio this morning on the way in, and then to have your presentation today talk about the support mechanisms that's out there for smaller farms. So thank you very much. If there's nothing else, Councillor Williams, I'll let you have the end of it.
Mr. Warden, are we requesting that this come back with a staff report at our next meeting?
I'm not sure if it's the next meeting or during budget. I'll leave that to Madam CAO.
Report at budget? Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Landry.
Just in regards to the report, so thank you, Louis, for the presentation. I believe you're here today making the pitch, but you will not be part of our decision making. But I'll put Tara on the spot here. Would it be possible in that report, like I know through agri-tourism, through our EDO, I have a lot of faith in Tara, but if she could also give us her view in that report, where Tara can maybe speak on the benefits of her thoughts, and to help council come up with that decision in regards to SDG. But I would appreciate something maybe from Tara on before making that final decision.
I'm sure there will be opportunity for that, and I also think of Ms. Belanger and the tourism end of it too, because it's all about, in my mind, not all about, but there's a large part of it's about agritourism, and that should be a big thing that should be top of mind for all of us in SDG. So I'm sure that'll be possible. If there's nothing else, thank you very much, Mr. Belland, and Ms. Dutrusiak, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you both this coming weekend. Take care.
Thank you very much for your time.
We're going to move into action requests, and Madam Clerk, if we could have the resolution for corporate services, the strategic plan.
It's moved by Councillor MacDonald, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry adopt the SDG Strategic Plan 2023-2026 as presented.
And Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So we've brought back our strategic plan. We had some good feedback from council at the last meeting, so we've made a couple of minor modifications to the wording. We have included wording for Akwesasne when we talk about the counties. We've actually set up a section that is collaboration with local municipalities under one of our sections, changed a couple of photos around. We added in some wording on the education component with the feedback from Councillor Jaworski. And our branding and the wording for our branding is consistent throughout the document. We've also put in wording with respect to multi-year budgeting, and I think for the most part, that's a summary of the comments. We are going to come back with a report with respect to how we're going to measure and monitor our progress through the priorities. But if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you for that. Questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Thanks.
And we're quickly going to drop right down to bylaws. Madam Clerk, the first item, please.
It's moved by Councillor Bergeron and seconded by Councillor MacDonald that bylaw number 5398, being a bylaw to authorize a franchise agreement between the Corporation of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry and Enbridge Gas Inc., be read a third and final time, passed in open council, signed and sealed.
I believe that's you, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Warden, you will recall that this bylaw came forward to County Council back in May for first and second reading. It's a provincial legislative requirement that Enbridge has to enter into an agreement with the county to provide its services. So the bylaw is just back now for third and final reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And I don't know that this is specific to the bylaw, but there have been concerns about the potential for charges for locates. I'm just wondering if and when there should be a discussion around our position on the potential for Enbridge charging for locates to, for public work and things like that within the municipality. They haven't to date, but it has been in the air, and I wouldn't want to see us having to pay charges for locates or at the lower tier as well.
Madam Clerk, if there's anything you could add to that, or Mr. DeHaan, thank you.
I guess, yeah, I'll take that one because it was something that was swirling around earlier this year. Fortunately, it kind of fell off the table, and Enbridge backed away from that potential issue. It's something we'll have to keep an eye on for sure, because you're absolutely right. That's just creates a barrier for people wanting to call for locates, and it is something we have to be very careful of. I think the system we have in place now for one call through that whole process is a good process, and the fact that it doesn't cost to actually get those locates done is very important for ourselves and for just the general public as well. So something we'll continue to advocate for.
Thank you. Councillor Densham? Okay. So all those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Madam Clerk, the update to the flag policy bylaw, please.
It's moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that bylaw number 5418, being a bylaw to adopt policy 4-2, the display and half-masting of flags on county property, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. Mr. DeHaan?
Thank you. So we took out the concept of flying the DeHaan flag permanently and changed it so that we were rotating a local flag once every 2 months. I think that was the major tweak that we made based on what we brought up last month. So,
Thank you. Questions, comments, thoughts? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And Madam Clerk, the speed limit update.
It's moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Bergeron, that bylaw number 5419, being a bylaw to revise the prescribed rate of speed for motor vehicles driven on certain county roads, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. Mr. DeHaan or Mr. Jans? I'm not sure who.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Council. We had 2 locations where we were asked to review the prevailing speed amongst other requests, and in both of these locations we noted a lack of a transition zone between an 80 and a 50 kilometer zone, and we wanted to bring these locations up to what I believe it's a guideline, best practice, yep. To put a transition zone in both locations. Completed the speed limit review warrant using the TAC guidelines as usual, and in both locations here we have these recommended speeds of 70 in these locations. So that's the proposed transition zone speed limit on the approach to both of these urban areas.
And if I may, I'll just jump in too. It was an interesting topic of discussion at a county engineers meeting we hosted here. I think that was last week. So pretty, most counties are moving towards this, the discussion amongst our colleagues moving towards this concept of transition zones and actually trying to optimize how they work. Essentially what it's attempting to do is give the drivers on the road the cue that there is something that requires you to be slowing down up ahead. So a little more effective than a 50 kilometer per hour ahead type of sign. So you're creating some kind of enforceable requirement to slow down as you enter into a more urbanized area. So it's, I think we took a good look at it, and the approach the county's taking is being taken by other counties throughout Ontario, or Eastern Ontario at least as well.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I see we have some. Councillor Densham and then Councillor Bergeron.
I wonder if Councillor Bergeron is going to raise the same question I'm going to raise. So, fully in agreement with what you're proposing. I'm just wondering, County Road 7, north of 43, right now is slowed down because of the detour for the bridge into Chesterville. I'm wondering if there's any thought to keep that at 60. I think it was 80 prior to this. That leads right up to the up to it. I drive that frequently because my grandkids are up the road there, and it's a kind of an abrupt stop. And I just thought, since we've already slowed that down for the detour sake to take you into the village, whether it might be appropriate to consider leaving that as 60 kilometers an hour through that stretch north of 43 to the point of the village, both in and out. That might also help with respect to the stop sign and the actions we're taking there.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bergeron.
I agree with you, Councillor Densham, about the County Road 7. I think that would help at the stop sign. Obviously, I live in South Mountain and east of South Mountain, and the speeding there is horrible, horrible. I mean, they flash by my house and they slam on the brakes just at the corner where the fairground starts. Personally, I would like to see it at 60 instead of 70. We've had a little discussion with that. I mean, it did work. East of Kempville, they put it at 60, and it absolutely did slow down the traffic. On another note, I see that other townships have passed a resolution for photo radar, and I definitely would support that, especially around settlement areas where people do speed, and I find it dangerous.
Thank you. Would you like to respond, Mr. DeHaan, and then Councillor McGillis?
Sure. We did have a little bit of correspondence offline about the change of speed limit. For our perspective, as we looked at it, the 70 was appropriate based on the type of roadside environment that was out there. It is relatively rural cross section. It's sometimes we see a little bit more of a transition between the dense urban area versus the exterior rural area. But in South Mountain, we actually, and same thing with Iroquois, it's actually there's quite a delineation between the two. So through that analysis that we did, 70 came up as the recommended posted speed limit. Whether it's 70 or and it could be, it's ultimately council's decision on this bylaw. If they prefer to see a 60 in that transition zone, that's completely, the purpose of it is to try and provide that cue to slow drivers down. So we've selected a speed that actually, complies with the Transportation Association of Canada guidelines based on what's out there right now. My suggestion is that we continue to monitor it out there. We're actually doing some studies and some traffic counting right now. And if we continue to see expansion and growth of the settlement area, then there may be a trigger to go to a 60 at some point in the future. But ultimately, it's up to council if they want to make that amendment. I'm sure we can make that amendment, no problem. And with respect to photo radar, there is quite a process involved with photo radar. And if we want to bring that more comprehensive report back to council, I'd be happy to do that, and we can discuss it, because it is a hot topic around Ontario for sure.
Before I pass it over to Councillor McGillis, I do want to just follow up on the photo radar comment, Mr. Hahn. Much like our upcoming Committee of the Whole meeting, photo radar, I do believe, was discussed quite thoroughly at the last with the last council. So again, with the Committee of the Whole meeting coming up in the same mindset, same vein, I think that information about photo radar, the cost, the benefit, and all of those things should be brought up to excuse me, this current council. So we're all have the same opportunity to make a fair decision. Councillor McGillis.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I think it's a good practice what we're doing here today regarding the speed limit and reducing at different areas and urban areas and also settlement areas, because that's where the traffic is more heavier and you see a lot of traffic going over the speed limit. They still don't adhere, a lot of them still don't adhere to the speed limit signs, but just to note that we are still on the police board when we're speaking with the different members of the police department to advocate in our efforts to continue enforcing municipal and county roads too as well, not just highways. And they understand the concern that we have. But, you know, it's not always to do with the problem is shortage of staff or whatever, and that's. They said they're going to continue their efforts in doing that, but hopefully that will help slow down the traffic, other than the signs, because signs, to me, aren't a real advocate.
Thank you, Councillor McGillis. As I look around the room, I do want to add one thing, one thought of mine. Another one is the radar monitors that are posted at different areas that flash and tell you how fast you're going. I know they work for those that are mindful and just need to be reminded of how fast they should be traveling as they enter a built-up area. And those signs, many of them, they compile the data. And then would you use that to refer to Councillor Bergeron's thoughts and modify the 70 to 60 if that signage was to let you know that people are still traveling at a high rate of speed as they enter the 50 zone?
So I'll speak to this. We do, those signs do compile the data, and we do receive that after it's been put up for a time. Just anecdotally, we find that they're most effective when they're first put up, and the longer they're there, the more drivers tune them out. And that for a period of approximately 1 to 2 weeks, they have an effect. We move it somewhere else. We take that data. I'll also add that oftentimes when we are asked to look at a location like that and we receive the data and we see what the prevailing speed there is, one of the first things that we do is we turn around and we send it to the OPP. We give them the advice that here's a location, the residents asked us to look at it, this is what we found. Sometimes it's speeders can't stop for a school bus in time. And so we've gone out there and I've asked the resident, what time does the bus come? OPP, here's a situation. I advise, I'm requesting you to go out there at such and such a time of day and at this specific location because this is what's been reported going on. So between the conventional rubber tubes and the radar signs, we do collect the data for the speeders, and then we do act on that, at least insofar as either reviewing the speed limit if we think that that's the right course of action, or asking for increased enforcement in that area.
And then I'll add to that, so we do have the tubes out right now, just outside of South Mountain, and our intention is that once the speed limit changes are in effect, so we're getting data pre, and then we'll get some data post and see what kind of impact it's had, and we can share that with council as well.
Thank you very much. Is there anything further? Councillor Bergeron.
Thank you, Warren. Just one small comment. One of the issues is that there's so little policing. I mean, I rarely see an OPP around South Mountain. Probably in a year, you know, less often than 5 fingers on my hand. And I think the local people know that. And so that's why they just speed right by, because they don't feel that they're going to get caught.
She's casting aspersions on North Dundas today. Naughty, naughty. If there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, we'll move towards the consent agenda, but before... Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I got sidetracked. I'm trying to speed through this. Yes, so if there's nothing further, all those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none. So we'll move to the consent agenda, but before we ask for the resolution, is there anything that members of council, staff, directors would like to bring up before we read the resolution on the consent agenda? Seeing nothing, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that all items listed under the consent agenda section of the agenda be received for information purposes.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Boards and committees. The warden's report, council representatives, I'm the first one to go, the warden's report. I did have an opportunity to attend a volunteer award ceremony just recently at the Best Western in Cornwall. It was an opportunity for me also to meet some new people in the ministry, and it's unfortunate that Tara or Karina's not here right now, but there are some new people with fresh thoughts with the Ministry of Tourism and Culture, Recreation, and then one person from the ministry supporting seniors. And they are planning to have some meetings in Prescott, Russell, and SDG to help with grant writing to support the efforts of our nonprofits, of our volunteer groups, of our recreation associations, of our local councils. And I look at Councillor Landry, and I think of one of his volunteers that's integral to this organization of the meeting, and I want to thank, through Councillor Landry, thank Pierre Thibault for being one of the spearheads to make sure that the people in SDG Prescott Russell have an opportunity to learn more about successful grant writing. So, Joint Liaison Committee, Councillor McDonald.
We had a meeting prior to the last county council, so we gave a report then. Our next meeting is in November.
Thank you. And the library board, I look to Councillor McDonald.
All right, thank you. SDG Reads is next Monday. I believe it's at North Stormont Place in Avonmore. Starts at 6:30 till 8 p.m. You can buy a VIP ticket. That's and you get there at 5 p.m. to get a little more access. Use of the collection continues to be more used. We looked over a purchasing policy. We're going to make excess books more available to community groups, so if you have friends of groups, please reach out to them. No change in control and financial oversight policy. Morewood Express has launched. There's a new website coming, so please do visit that. And then we're going to have a volunteer appreciation event, and all your volunteers are invited, so if you know anybody in your communities that help the libraries, let them know. I don't know if the date was set, but we'll give you more information as we get more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Police Services Board, Councillor McGillis.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. There's been a change with the distribution of the police record check. The OPP centralized the police record check process by transferring the responsibility for the process of the detachment staff to an online police board check. This will eliminate the need for detachment staff to perform duties associated with the police records check, with the exception except for the exception of fingerprinting. But the revenue will stop for the police check and will end the counties by 2008. There will be a gradual reduction of revenue provided by the municipalities, except for the revenue for fingerprinting, as I said. This will change in staffing at the OPP detachment locations. Will be captured in the overall municipal police recovery in the Police Services Act. They've seen also a reduction in stolen vehicles occurrences and when they're going through the 401. That's a good thing for this community, but across Ontario, it's increasing. So I guess we're lucky in this area that it's not as rampant. Highway 138 continues to be a focal point for their proactive enforcement activities, as I mentioned before. And of course, if anybody wants to see the agenda or what was in the agenda, I'm sure Kim would be nice enough to forward the email. And we'll be discussing a budget next week. So in the next meeting, we'll let everyone know what, I'm sure we'll hear through our nice CAO, Maureen. She'll explain to us and talk about what the changes are and what where we stand in terms of the finances for the OPP and what the cost is to the counties and municipalities are. That's it, I think.
Thank you, Councillor. Eastern Ontario Health Unit, Mr. Councillor Lang.
I was hoping that Councillor Williams was going to take.
Councillor Williams.
I'll do the next one.
Okay, well, I'm looking at my notes, and we did have a meeting in between, did we not? Okay, I'm hoping my notes are current here. So a new vaccine has been rolled out. It's an updated version from last year's. There's also an RSV vaccine out for babies, and flu clinics will be offered throughout the region, and people will have the opportunity to get their flu shot and their COVID shots at one time, one in each arm. I think we spoke about this at the last county council meeting, because there's talks of boards of health merging. I think I mentioned that last time. But the Eastern Ontario Health Unit is not looking at a merger with its neighboring partners for now. So it's something that could be on the table at some point, but right now we're not looking at a merger. That's all I have. Do you have any other notes?
The only other thing I might add is that it's been very uncertain about budget. I believe we are guaranteed a 1% budget increase now, and at least we have something to go on for next year. So it's good to finally have something concrete, because it was up in the air for a long time.
Thank you. Glenstone Lodge, Councillor Lang.
Thank you very much. We did have a meeting as well. As this council is quite aware, most of what the big issue staff is dealing with is staffing and working to increase staffing and get the people that we need in place. Wasn't too much else exciting on the agenda. I will add that we've had a non-COVID respiratory outbreak on the second floor. At an update again this morning, it's down to one person at this time and being contained and dealt with. So, but non-COVID, but it is that time of year where respiratory outbreaks are happening. Thanks.
Thank you. And St. Lawrence River Institute, Councillor Gaindel.
Good morning, Mr. Warden. Nothing new to report. The next meeting is in November.
Thank you. Rays and South Nation Source Water Protection, Councillor Bergeron.
I have nothing to report either. Our next meeting is November 23rd.
Thank you. And I have nothing to report on the Algonquin land claims. Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network, Councillor Williams. Thank you. Regional incentives programs approvals. I looked that there was nothing to report. And the Social Development Council, Councillor Williams, nothing to report. Rural Education Committee, Councillor St. Pierre.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warden. We did meet on September 26. A couple members were absent, so it was quite an informal meeting. We did do introductions and did a quick review of the development plan that was created in 2022. A chair was not selected. We'll try to do that at our next meeting, which is still to be determined. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I can just make a very brief comment on Roma. We had our meeting in Toronto last week, and I have received some phone calls from various townships with regards to the Roma conference at the end of January that's coming up, and people have been trying to book rooms at the Sheraton, and they can't book the Saturday, but they can book the Sunday and the Monday. And of course, people like to often come in the day before in order to be able to be there first thing for Sunday morning. So I asked what the reasoning was for that, because nobody likes to have to be in one hotel and then turn around and move to another one. But apparently there is already a conference that is happening at the Sheraton that butts right up against the Roma conference, and it doesn't end until I think early Sunday morning. And as a result, the rooms have already been booked on the Saturday by this other conference. So it's unfortunate, but people will either have to come in on the Sunday, or if you want to come in on the Saturday, I think you can book at the Hilton, which is right next door to the Sheraton anyway. I just wanted to explain that, Mr. Warden.
Thank you. And that explanation causes me to wonder or ask, are there conferences or seminars taking place early on Sunday? I think that was the rumor that was out there, or the information that I had heard of, which was, I believe, was causing some of the concerns about booking a Saturday room.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warden. We spent the bulk of our board meeting talking about what the sessions were going to be, the concurrent and the plenary sessions. No sessions will start before sessions start after lunch on the Sunday. However, there will be zone meetings, zone rep meetings, and I'm zone 7. And the zone reps will be available in mid-morning for zone rep meetings, but those are, so, if anybody wants to attend those, that's the only thing that really happens before lunch.
Thank you, Councillor Landry.
If I can add, so maybe it's something to look into. I believe we have rooms booked for the Saturday, and if you go on the Roma website, it starts Sunday morning, and I believe it's done Tuesday. So the Sunday afternoon to Wednesday morning was changed, where that's why we were looking at booking the Saturday to be there for that morning. So Roma's missing the boat there. If they're like I said, their website says it starts not after lunch, it starts sessions in the morning on their website.
Yeah, well, we're just finalizing the schedule, but there are no actual concurrent sessions or plenary sessions before lunch.
If I may just add, so to me, if that's the case, the typical getting there in, say, mid-morning or lunchtime on a Sunday avoids booking a room on the Saturday, which would have been more beneficial for our councillors that are attending. So it's something, you're finalizing the session now, but there's already people that are booking to make sure they get the venue booked. So just a...
May I, Mr. Warden?
Please.
Point
Please.
well taken. It's one of those where there's information already out there, but none of it's been finalized, and we're, I would say, a little bit behind the 8 ball. So point well taken.
It's unfortunate there's such confusion and I don't point at you, Councillor Williams, about the confusion. It's the confusion coming from somewhere else. That's you didn't do all the planning, I'm sure. It wouldn't be such a mess if you did. But it has caused a lot of consternation, a lot of scrambling around, and people having a room here and a room there and switching rooms. So again, I think back to the combined conference and how maybe they got to still, it causes me concern that they don't have their act together. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the key information and the satellite courts. Ms. Russell.
Good morning, Council. It's that time of year we're trying to plan for the 2024 budget, but I thought I'd bring to your attention that our 2 satellite courts, one in Morrisburg and one in Alexandria, their lease agreements are coming due. The Morrisburg Satellite Court lease agreement is due on, it expires on December 31st, and the Alexandria Satellite Court expires May 31st, 2024. We currently have not had any proceedings in the satellite courts since the onset of COVID, and there's no indication in the near future that any of these courts will open. So we're at the point right now where we're trying to determine if there's any benefit to having those satellite courts, or if council would like to see us proceed with terminating the courts altogether. So I just wanted to bring that up to your attention, and hopefully we can start the conversation with MAG.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Questions, comments? I think this is a big change for some, and I do look back to the previous term of County's Council, and that was a concern about the courts and the lack of use and rent and all of that. But to that, do we have any thoughts that we want to lean in on before we have another discussion on this? No. Okay.
One other point I should probably mention is that the satellite courts aren't equipped to do the hybrid court system right now either, so there would be significant amount of investment that would have to go into these courts for 1 day a month, should it ever happen that we get to reopen.
Thank you for your report.
Yeah. So
Yes, and I did ask for comments and thoughts. Councillor McDonald?
Since I fought 10 consecutive years to keep them open, I do see that we aren't using them at this point, and it doesn't make sense to continue operating them, so I'd be in favor of seeing them close.
Yes, thank you. And you were one of the more ardent, you're the most ardent supporter in the past. Councillor Williams?
Keeps changing his mind, eh? I agree. I think the cost of equipping them when they may not be used anyway probably doesn't make sense at this point in time. Thank you.
Further thoughts for guidance? Councillor McGillis?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I see the cost is $3,500 annually in Alexandria for the satellite course. And what's the other one?
about $32.50.
$32.50. So
But it doesn't include the CPI that we would include in 2024.
So that'd be the cost savings.
It's $7,500.
Okay, I have to agree that probably we should just disband of doing that anymore, the satellite courts.
Thank you. And we'll do a quick straw poll then, in keeping them open. Can I see some head nods to keep them open, or to, as been suggested by 3 members of council, to forego keeping them open? Keeping them open. Forego keeping them open. Okay, thank you. Mr. Jans, and the collision statistics along SDG roads.
That's right. Thank you, and I hope council finds this a beneficial presentation. This has been a passion project of Mike's for some time, to provide, to get this information together, collision statistics and analysis together, and I think it'll prove insightful, and we look forward to council's comments, thoughts, and views of what we've got. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, let him go through collision statistics on SDG roads, and of course now something's going on here. We're good. We got her. All right, and with that, I'll turn over to you, Mike. Go ahead.
All right. Apologize, Councillor Gano. We can no longer see you. You'll have to speak up if you have any questions. We all know we have quite the road network out there, and it's very beneficial to society and moving goods, commuting, all the benefits that come with it. Unfortunately, accidents happen, and I'd like to review this with you, and we'll all hopefully have a better understanding of what's going on out there at the end of this. The initial intent was to complete a review of an exact 3-year period from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2022. Unfortunately, at the beginning of 2023, we were receiving reports of frequent collisions at a particular intersection, and once I had that data in hand, I thought to include it in the study, not just for that intersection, but for all county locations in that same time period. So the study period was stretched to May 31st, 2023, so 3 years, 5 months. This is just a quick overview of the presentation today. I'm going to discuss the purpose of the analysis, some of the limitations of the analysis, and we'll discuss that in detail as well. Brief explanation of the methodology. I'd love to go further detail into the math, but you guys can participate in that on a voluntary basis if you're interested. Then we'll get into the findings. We're going to break it out into road sections, intersections, and then just general statistical findings county-wide. And then the next steps of where I'd like to go from here, and hopefully I can get your blessing on that. The purpose of the analysis, we want to rank our road sections, our intersections, find out where collisions are overrepresented. We want to identify the prevailing factors at those locations. We want to understand just prevailing factors countywide if we can, just get an understanding of what's going on, and inform council of what these are, so that you also understand what's going on county roads. This understanding could be used to inform future decisions when we're having specific conversations about specific locations, and just in general to be proactive with our road system, and not be reactive when incidents are occurring and we're hearing from residents about recent collisions. There were some limitations on what we could do with this analysis. First and foremost, we can only work with the data that was provided by the MTO, which requires that the OPP fill out a collision report and submit it to the MTO. This analysis excluded all collisions on provincial highways, with some exceptions, as well as local roadways. There are a lot of individual collision reports, and in this first iteration of the study, at least, some of this was being done manually. So in order to cut down the labor, there's a bit of a narrow focus on this study. In that vein, only intersections between county roads were considered as intersections. Anywhere where a township road intersects with a county road, that's just being treated as part of the larger road section. I will speak to the impacts of that, it's called an assumption, later in the presentation, and what impact that might have had on the results. We used pre-pandemic traffic counts. There was a period of years where we weren't able to complete the traffic counts, and we don't have a full set of post-pandemic traffic counts available to us. Very shortly, we will have the West End completed, as Ben mentioned earlier today. We still have some counters out in areas, particularly in North Dundas. We are doing the West End this year. The data provided by the MTO is in a file format that's not very convenient to us. There was a lot of work involved in unpackaging that and converting data into a usable format. I will put in a good word for our Director of Infrastructure, Information Technology, Mike St. Onge. He assisted me in this. He wrote a computer program that crawls through their files, pulls out the information that I'm looking for, and puts it into an Excel table. And I couldn't have done this without him. And in certain fields in the provided reports, the data can be vague. Typically, when we're dealing with collisions, we separate serious injury from a minor injury. The police reports that have been provided to us don't have that. We only have fatality, injury, and property damage only. Sometimes the officer's statement is vague or empty, and in such cases, we're working with limited information. Moving on to methodology, the first thing we did was map all of the collisions. The first slide that you saw was a GIS map with the 3.5 years roughly of collisions mapped onto it. So that gives you a sense of what we're looking at. If you look very carefully, you can see some of the major roads starting to pop out, by connecting the dots. I counted each occurrence of a collision at an intersection or on a road section and recorded those. This was done manually, which is why I sought to take a more narrow scope. And once I had those counts, sections and intersections were sorted from high quantity to low quantity. I also took a approach of sort of reorganizing the lists based on rates. So for a road section, you might consider a 1 kilometer road section, and every time a car drives that section, you have 1 kilometer of mileage logged. Next car comes along, 2, 3, and what this allows you to do when you have the traffic counts, how many people drive that per day, you've got the length of the study period, the length of the road, and the number of collisions, you can come up with this rate. It is essentially a collisions per million kilometers traveled, and you can compare every different road section. They all are unique in their own way, but you can compare the rates on them. Similarly, for intersections, it's collisions per million vehicles entering. They don't have a length or a unit of measurement that way, but we can still do something similar. And once I've had these rates, again, rate them from high to low. And the nice thing about these rates is if I take a different length of study period in the future, or anything of that sort that changes how many necessarily collisions occurred that I'm looking at, but the rate might change, or the rate shouldn't change. The rate, we would want it to at least go down. That marks positive improvement, but we're comparing apples to apples at that point. Once we have that information, we can ask ourselves some questions. We might be curious as to which road section had the highest number of accidents and which road section had the highest collision rate. Similarly, with intersections, we can look at those two metrics. And then we can ask ourselves, are there common factors? How do we compare against other counties? And based on our findings, is there anything we can do to improve safety? When it comes to the things that we can do, a lot of jurisdictions have something called, I think it's Program Zero or
Vision Zero.
Vision Zero, where it's their goal to try and reduce. I don't think it's necessarily fatalities, but collisions, eliminate collisions altogether. We don't have a Vision Zero, but what we could be talking about here is how can we make the road network more forgiving to user errors in the broadest sense. That's the question that we can ask ourselves and look for things to do. We can also look at the conditions of our roads. Under which conditions do most of the collisions occur? In the top left, we have not great visibility, but the road looks dry. Pavement markings are certainly visible. Looks like a good road. We could also have a snow-covered road, which is maybe not a good road. It's a bad road, but good visibility. You can have bad visibility and a bad road, or you can have a good visibility and a good road. The bottom right picture is actually County Road 22. It's one of ours. Let's move on to results. In this analysis, I looked at 199 distinct road sections. So that's between county road intersections, ignoring the township intersections. 26 sections had no collisions at all in the study period. Just a small portion. And in this analysis, we found 1,346 collisions to have occurred in what we considered county road sections. The average being 6.9 per road section. And if we work that out on a per kilometer basis, countywide, approximately 0.7 collisions per 100 kilometers of road. And here is the top 10 list based on quantity. As you can see, the worst section had 47 collisions, and there's quite a precipitous drop from number 1 to number 10. If you were to graph all road sections, you would see a hyperbolic curve and a very predominant display. A lot of collisions happen on a small number of roads. I can see you all reading very carefully, looking for your favorite road section on here. I'll point out the top two are rural. Number 3 and number 4 are semi-urban. And I'd like to move on now, if that's okay with you guys. All right. I'm going to put the top 2 on here because I can fit 2 on a page. Here, County Road 43 from 30 to 45 is a very rural section. We had 47 collisions, no fatalities. A small percentage are injuries, overwhelmingly property damage. And 81% of collisions are related to wild animals. Almost all of those are deer. Most of the collisions occurred in the dark, most during clear weather, and on dry road conditions. Moving on to County Road number 2, between 40 and 14, so I believe that's west of Ingleside. 43 collisions. We had 1 fatality, slightly larger number of injuries, but still overwhelmingly collisions are just property damage. Again, 81% of collisions are wild animals, predominantly deer. Most occurred after dark, during clear weather, and on dry road conditions. And I'll note that the 1 fatality did not involve an interaction with a wild animal. Unfortunately, it was an incident between a vehicle and a recreational vehicle on that section of road. Reshuffling the list based on the collision rates. We have almost an entirely new list here. The only road section that is on both lists is County Road 43 from 30 to 45 in North Glengarry. Number 3 here, you'll note, is an urban area, but predominantly we have rural areas on this list. And I'll look again at the top 2. County Road 8 from 28 to 18 with 3.79 collisions per million kilometers traveled. 0 fatalities, 0 injuries. They were all property damage reported. And again, dry, dark, clear weather, and all but 2 incidents involved deer strikes. When we look at County Road 14 from 12 to 43, this is from Newington out east and up to County Road 43. We see sort of a divergence of factors here. Here we had 30% injuries, 70% were property damage only, and 40% here occurred due to wild animals in the dark. 40% happened in daylight in dry conditions, and 20% were related to snow on the road, or snow was listed as a factor in the collision having occurred. I will point out that this is, I think, the only section of road that the county doesn't plow in the wintertime. We pass that on to the township.
That one, one of the roads.
One of the few, anyway.
Yeah.
This section of road, every winter it's signed that the maintenance conditions are changed. I'm very familiar, having lived in Newington for a while, and what we see here is that it's a small number of collisions are snow-related, but they're not the same collisions where injuries are reported. And what we can see, this arrangement doesn't appear to be creating a significant hazard on this road. Move on to intersections. I analyzed 115 different intersections. 43 had 0 incidents, so this is a much larger proportion than the sections, where there were only 26 out of 200. What we see here is we have an average of 2.2 collisions per intersection, and that's over the study period. When we break that down on a per year basis, it's 0.65. And what we find, we typically hear from residents when we've had 2 relatively back-to-back incidents at an intersection in a short period of time. That's approximately 3 times the annual average for any county intersection. So when they reach out to us and they let us know that there's been 2, that's a good indicator that something's happening here. It's well above average. Here's our top 10 list for intersections by quantity. There's one intersection that didn't make this list that also had 7. That's at 43 and 34 in Alexandria. The intersection I referred to earlier, where we were receiving reports of an uptick in collisions, that was 18 and 31, which you can see is number 4 on this list. 43 and 7 made the top 10, as did 19 and 27, and 3/4 of our roundabouts also made the top 10 list. Looking at the top 2 again, County Road 43, 3, and 31, just outside Winchester, we had 12 collisions. We had 42% of those collisions had injuries, and a little over half were property damage only. Prominent conditions: dry, daylight, and clear. The impact types do vary, but when we look at the police statements, we see predominant causes: vehicles entering against the traffic light or misjudging the safe time to turn across oncoming traffic. When we look at number 2, County Road 2 at 31, this is one of our roundabouts, our newest roundabout. We had 10 collisions, however, we had 0 fatalities and 0 injuries. Everything was property damage only. Again, the collisions occurred in dry, daylight, clear weather conditions. We converted this roundabout in 2021, and all reported collisions since the conversion have been reported to be due to a failure to yield to vehicles already inside the roundabout. We'll reshuffle based on the collision rates. Number 1 is quite surprising. It's a very rural, very low traffic intersection. However, it stands out because very few vehicles enter the intersection for the number of collisions that occur. We can see 19 and 27 is number 2. 43 and 15 we don't hear much about, or we haven't in recent years, but it's within a curve and hardly surprising. 18 and 15, and then finally at number 5, County Road 43 and 7. I'll note the only intersection to make both lists is County Road, I'm mistaken. That was it. Here we can see at County Road 5 and 16, we had 1 injury, mostly property damage, similar to the previous intersection review. We have dry, daylight, clear weather conditions, and often the police report indicates a failure to yield. 19 and 27, very similar. We have a few injuries, mostly property damage, and the police reports continue to indicate failure to yield to through traffic. I'd like to point out on the top 10 list for rates. Harrison's Corners at County Road 15 and 18 was on that list. It had 5 collisions, and there we have a 4-way stop, and yet we continue to have almost as many collisions as 19 and 27. And there we had, again, 3 injuries and 40% property damage. And I think that's a great comparison to 19 and 27 if we were to convert that to a 4-way stop, as was discussed several times. Yet at Harrison's Corners, we don't see it dropping off the top 10 list. So I think that's some context that's worth keeping in mind during some future discussions. Moving on to general results, this table includes all collisions within the geographic township, geographic region of SDG, and we have the county-only collisions and then the all collisions. And we can see it varies a bit year by year, but generally about 50% of collisions are happening on county roads within the geographic region. We'll spend some time here discussing fatalities, a very serious topic. Out of 29 fatalities within the geographic region, 13 occurred on provincial roads, 12 occurred on county roads, and 4 occurred on township roads. I've broken it out by speed limit. You can see that 80 kilometers per hour is overrepresented. Most of our roads are, by kilometer at least, are 80 kilometer per hour. The 138 is 80 kilometer per hour, and a lot of township roads are 80 kilometer per hour. This is mostly just due to the fact that most of the roads out there are 80 kilometers per hour. We can see there's a significant amount that occurred in 100 kilometer per hour or 110 kilometer per hour area. Obviously, those were on the provincial roads. And you'll see that 2 occurred in 50 kilometer per hour zones. Both of those occurred on county roads, and I will point out some of the factors that were at play there. Of the 12 collisions that occurred on county roads, 8 were reported as single vehicle collisions resulting from a loss of control of some kind. 8 were reported to include impact with a stationary object. These varied between poles, trees, buildings, or general earth structures. You know, in this image here, we can see all 4 as an example to get a visual of what we're talking about here. In all 12 instances, the road conditions were clear and no wild animals were reported. Only 3 of those fatalities occurred in low light conditions. The vast majority were in daylight. The 12 fatalities occurred in 12 distinct locations. 2 of the fatalities were within the village of Finch. Those were those 2 50 kilometer per hour zones. However, they were on different county roads, going different directions, different times at different times. They were 12 months apart. So there's no apparent similarities between those 2 collisions that we can draw to try and you know, glean a further understanding of what might be happening or what might have happened. Only 2 fatal collisions occurred on road sections that had high volumes of accidents. County Road 2 between 40 and 14, as I mentioned earlier, that was a recreational vehicle and a vehicle that collided. On County Road 15 between 18 and 43, there was 1 fatal accident, and I'll mention something about that in a second here. County staff are called to perform road closure support services to the OPP when there are collisions, and they have been advised of up to 3 fatalities caused by medical episodes prior to the incident. Like the medical episode was a sort of contributing factor to the incident. Only one of the police reports actually refers to a medical episode. There are a couple of reports that were vague on this, so it may have been those 2 as well, and that makes the 3. The only collision report that does reference the medical episode is the one on 15 between 18 and 43. So that unfortunately there's no correlation there between a high quantity of intersections and a fatality, which doesn't give us further understanding. We can note that 0 fatal collisions occurred at high rate road sections or at high quantity and high rate intersections. So the conclusion here being that fatalities are not correlated with collision prone locations or urban areas in general. And I think this is a good thing to note. 0 fatalities were reported to have involved pedestrians or cyclists. And I went back through 10 years of data, not just this study period, and I did not find a police report that involved a fatality between a vehicle and a pedestrian in 10 years. Here are the general, we're going to get into general results here with some tables. Wild animals, slightly less than 1/3 of incidents involve wild animals. Almost 80% of collisions occur in clear weather. Wind was a small part of some of those, but I did kind of have to reshuffle the collisions here to get a clean table. You'll see that snow is at 9. The second most prevalent environmental condition is at 9%. Just slightly more than half of collisions occur during daylight. Approximately 1/3 occur in the dark. So going back to this slide earlier, we can see that our county roads with dry conditions and daylight are where most collisions are occurring. The dark, the snow, rain aren't as significant of factors as we might have guessed prior, perhaps. We can break things out by time of day. We can see we have a morning peak and an afternoon peak. I think it makes sense that collisions are occurring when people are on the road and trying to get to places. More collisions occur on a Friday than any other day of the week, and when we break it down by month, we can see we have a general baseline, let's say about 8% for most months, and it goes up by about 3% through the winter months. We saw that we had 9% of collisions occurring with snow, and perhaps it makes sense that you break that 9 into 3% and tack it on to the winter months. But November is a little bit higher, and our assumption here perhaps is that deer are more active during that time of year, and that leads to an uptick in that month. This is by collision type, SMV standing for single motor vehicle. 2/3 of collisions are single motor vehicle, not a collision between two or more vehicles. We have various other types, rear ends, turning movements, side swipes. They all add up, but are minor types according to the data. And when we look at where collisions are occurring, a little over 2/3 do not happen at intersections. And when I referred earlier to intersections, this non-intersection is a statement within the police report. So even though I only looked at county roads, county road intersections, and I assume that township intersections were part of county road sections, we can see that still 2/3 are happening not even at township intersections. They are strictly within a road segment between intersection. Intersection related perhaps could be somebody pulls out and gets rear-ended a little bit further down because they didn't leave enough time for an oncoming vehicle, and then at intersection would be strictly within the intersection itself. We had discussed 254 collisions as being at county road intersections, and here if you take the intersection related and at intersection, we can see that we have approximately 140 intersection-related collisions that weren't considered as being at county road intersections. So roughly 10% of the data in that way was glossed over. This analysis could be improved in a number of ways. Number one would be getting more data out of those MTO files. Right now we're picking and choosing what data we pull out with the computer program. It has to be very specific. We're looking at ways to extract more of the data so that we can, again, look at that data analytically and slice this issue in more ways. We are collaborating with other counties. Off the top of my head, Leeds and Grenville and Lennox-Addington. The program that Mike St. Onge wrote has been shared with them, and they are using our program to unpackage their data. And one of the reasons why my analysis was a bit focused was because I was doing a lot of it very manually. At Lennox-Addington, they have a GIS technician who's working on a dashboard that would unpackage a lot of these statistics and get the computer to do the work. And so I'm looking forward to implementing that here. That capability is going to improve our methodology. It's going to give us increased capability. We'll be able to look at those township and county road intersections. We'll be able to look at local roads as well. It will spit out a top 10 list for South Stormont. You want a top 10 list? We can give that to you. Any other township you want a top 10 list? We can give that to you. And we'll be able to look at the provincial roads as well if we feel curious as to what's going on there. We can incorporate other metrics, not just the rates, but we can look at intersections based on prevailing conditions. Are they all rear ends? Well, maybe if we looked at that, we can figure out why. We can look at collision type uniformity as another metric to discuss where we want to focus some attention. And I'd like to repeat, with your blessing, repeat this analysis on an annual basis or perhaps semi-annually and keep an updated understanding of what's going on out on the county road system and bring that information to you. I'd like to keep continuing to gather data. The traffic counts feed into this. The obtaining the information from ARIS feed into this. So I'd like to keep an updated database of that. And I'd like to review the top intersections and the top road sections in greater detail, leaving here today. All of this leads to potential actions that the county could take. Maintaining policies that encourage a reduction in hazards within the right-of-way. As we saw, most of the fatalities involved something that was immobile. So policies that continue to discourage those anywhere near the right-of-way is a just cause. When we replace end-of-life infrastructure, the traffic calming measures, like we saw the roundabout in Morrisburg, there were no injuries, there were no fatalities. It was all property damage. So we may not necessarily be able to reduce the number of collisions. We're not in the driver's seat of every car, but we can create a road network that is more forgiving to road users. We could review emerging wildlife deterrent technologies. This is something that a lot of jurisdictions grapple with, and we could also reassess the appropriate locations of deer crossing signs now that we have maps that show we can boil it down to just the wildlife, and we can put the sign locations on relative to the map, and we can say, is this, do we need to make any adjustments? And with this data and a program that pulls the statistics out of it, we could potentially find partners to conduct road safety studies or research in our jurisdiction. And lastly, public awareness. Now that this information is out there, we can advise patience and caution at intersections, which we saw is a factor, or could potentially reduce the quantity of collisions, and remind drivers they need to yield the right of way in certain situations. We can raise awareness about where the deer are and when they're moving, perhaps with social media blasts, and we can continue to review emotionally intelligent signages and other best practices as it engages the public. That is the last slide. I'm going to turn it over to council now and hear your thoughts.
Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Jans. It was quite a lot of information that you had gathered, and I'll open up the questions, comments from members of council or thoughts. Councillor Densham, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and excellent job. Really good data. I can see this being the foundation for decision making in many different ways. You've touched on a couple of the ideas in terms of deer, addressing that for the long term, but even with respect to design of road and just reinforcing, how we look to do that. I would be very supportive of us formalizing this, so making it a regular annual type analysis. If we could reach this process, and by formalizing, I guess, it means putting in place some of the GIS type things that would allow you to make this easier to do, faster to do. And then from that point, hopefully that would make it simple for us to be able to introduce some of the local road data into the process so that we can make decisions. I would very much support that with our own Public Works Department to play a role on bringing that in. And I think with stuff like that, you could also look at things like you talked about earlier in the meeting, metrics regarding transition speeds and how that actually affects or does not. You're taking a lot of the speculative, anecdotal information out of the picture and putting it into hard data, which is fantastic. I think that makes very sound decision making. And again, I love the fact that you're separating intersections from the main road, because I think they are two very different circumstances, and it allows you to look at each. It's nice to roll it up so you get a big picture, but really the devil's in the details, which you've done very, very well. So thank you for that, and highly support formalizing this going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Densham. Further comments, Councillor St. Pierre, and then Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Warden, just very quickly, I really do like the presentation. There was a lot of thought and effort into it. I just to further what the councillor said, I really like it that this is fact-based now, that we're just not going to come here and try to make decisions based on opinions and what we think we see and what we don't think we see. So it's really good, and to me, this goes back to our strategic plan, where this is a measurable measurable item as well. So I'm really glad that we're moving forward on that mine thinking. A lot to unpack. I'm not going to pretend that I absorbed all of the numbers here, but just going back to the roundabouts just specifically, again, I apologize if you said this, but how many collisions, or were there any collisions of people driving the wrong way in the roundabout, and how does that compare to the other roundabout? I'm thinking Mooresburg, but how does that compare to other roundabouts in the county?
Off the top of my head, I apologize. I don't have any recollection of reading a report of someone going the wrong way in a roundabout. The police reports that I was reading for the Mooresburg roundabout said that they failed to yield. I don't know if they were trying to turn left or right entering the roundabout, but just that they failed to yield and the collision occurred.
Just a quick follow-up. I think this tool as well may help us. Again, I'm just specifically talking about roundabouts to try to continuously educate people on how to drive through roundabouts. And the reason I asked is because we had a collision yesterday in Mooresburg at the roundabout, and I believe the individual was going the wrong way. So I also think this is also an education tool that we can utilize as well, just moving forward.
So Ben has the numbers up on the screen here. 10 was, okay, we'll put them up. County Road 2 in Mooresburg had 10, and then the other two roundabouts, 2 and 35 and 2 and 36, each had 8. So the one in Iroquois doesn't show up on this list. I can pull those descriptions out and have a look and send you an email after this.
Sorry, just quickly, it'd be interesting to get that data as well, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor McDonald, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm a fan of yearly. That way you have that kind of 90% of data management is probably in the cleanup. So to do it semi-annually would be cleaning up quite a bit, whereas you can do it all in one batch. And I like the idea, especially at the end, because I had it as something to note that local roadways get added, because going back to that 90% cleanup, like you query the data once and then you clean it up, maybe you're not putting in the points on, because that's time consuming. But if the data is cleaned up so that somebody else can put the time into it, and that goes with partnerships and collaboration. Lower tiers are your chief partner, so if you can do the query and the cleanup as a whole and then let them do the manual work after that, that'd be wonderful, I think. So I'm thankful you put that in the end of the report.
Thank you, Councillor Mr. Jans.
So what I saw from a video conference with the GIS specialist at Lennox Addington is that they're able to assign a collision to the nearest road section. So going by the coordinates, every police report includes the physical coordinates of the collision. Sometimes the receiver or whatever might have an error of several meters one way or the other. But using the police reports, description of where it is, parking lot off-road, at an intersection or a non-intersection, and what the primary road was listed as and what the secondary road was listed as, and just using the fact that we know approximately where our roads are relative to those GIS coordinates, GPS coordinates. The computer tells the collision, you belong to this road section. And so by assigning it now and the computer doing that work, perhaps there's a little bit of just review to make sure it's accurate, but essentially we would be able to turn around and have you look at a map and know you have access to a certain section of that data immediately, because you have a GIS and we share the data with you, and then the prevailing factors, the quantity, everything we could give you access to.
Thank you, Mr. Jans. Anything further on the key information report? I do have one thing I'd like to ask. It's sort of piggybacks to Councillor St. Pierre's thoughts. Can you break out how much safer a roundabout is versus what 2 and 31 was, or what the intersection at Moulinet was? Is that possible? Just
theoretically, yes. The roundabout in Mooresburg has been there since 2021. It's not a very long period of time. If we're going to look at statistically, we want enough time to have gone by to look at what's going on. The ones in Long Sault, I think would be a better candidate for something like that because they have been there for a little bit longer, and I think Iroquois was the first one. So
Iroquois and Long Sault were the same time, pretty much.
okay, so between those three intersections, we could put something together that I think we can trust the numbers, and then with Morrisburg, maybe we give it a year or two to look at the before and after, and the alternative would be you'd have to try and compare the Morrisburg roundabout now to what it was like before and find another intersection somewhere off in the county that is a sort of a proxy for what it was before. But I think we're already 2 years past. We might as well just wait another year if we're going to look at those numbers on that one. But at least for the first three, we can do that.
Certainly, and whatever works best for you. But I think that'd be interesting whenever we argue or discuss future roundabouts, if we could have that information to lean on, or just simply for argument's sake, when we're at a local coffee shop and people challenge us on the cost of things, we can say we could have something to back up this argument. Thank you, Councillor McGillis.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I can recall when the roundabouts in Long Sault were first installed. It was 2 minor accidents, I believe, at the time, and that's when they were first installed. So people are getting very much used to them now, and I think that people, when they're heading towards Morrisburg, they'll act accordingly as well.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, thank you very much, gentlemen. And at this point, the key information report from our CAO. Madam CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So just in my little report here, I've provided a summary of some of the meetings that I attended during the month of September. A couple of things that I would just like to highlight. I have set up meetings quarterly with our local CAOs that go out to the end of 2024. We did have a meeting a few weeks ago, and I invited CAO Matt Fleury from the City of Cornwall to come in briefly to meet everyone. So I've had also a couple of meetings with the City of Cornwall, so I think that there's some great opportunities to continue to work together. And as we have items with our local CAOs, if some of those items are touch points with the City of Cornwall, the City of Cornwall has indicated they're happy to join us in discussions. So I just wanted to mention that. Council, I know everyone is going to be extremely busy in the weeks ahead between budget, but there's also quite a bit going on for County Council. Upcoming this Saturday, we have the Warden's Banquet, but then we have the Committee of the Whole meeting on October the 30th. We've got Strategy Corp on November the 14th, and we have a regular council meeting, and then we have budget discussions planned for December 6th and 7th. And then we have a couple of other meetings in December. So we also have an emergency management training exercise planned for early November. So that is open to any of the group of our local municipalities that would like to join us. I believe that they have been RSVPing, so you might see some of them attend that. And then we have, I know it's October, but we have a council staff Christmas gathering planned for the 1st of December. So those are just high levels, a few items. We're doing a couple of recruitments. We also have on the CUPE side, just to give council a brief update, we do have a couple of dates lined up at the end of October and the 1st of November to start to exchange our proposals and hopefully start to move that new collective agreement along its way. So I'm not sure if there's any questions, but that's it.
Thank you, Madam CAO. Questions, comments, thoughts from members of council? And I'm glad you announced once again the Warden's Banquet on October 21st, 6 p.m., Cheshire Legion in North Dundas. If there's nothing else, Madam Clerk, we'll move right through motions, notice of motion, petitions, miscellaneous business, and right to 14.1. If you would administer the proceedings for the election, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, I'll just give a brief overview of the election process. In a few moments, I'll call for nominations for the position of Warden for 2024. Nominations must be moved and seconded. Once nominations are closed, each candidate will have 5 minutes to provide remarks to County Council. Voting will then commence. Each council member will individually cast their ballot behind us here in the Warden's room, starting with Councillor Jamie McDonald, making our way around, finishing with Warden Fraser. Then I will call Councillor Guédon, who's joining via Zoom today. He will cast his ballot via telephone. Once the votes are tallied by myself and the CAO, I will announce the successful candidate. So I will now open the floor for nominations for the position of Warden for the year 2024.
So I nominate Councillor McDonald, and I will move the
Is there a seconder for that nomination?
I will second that.
Are there any further nominations for the position of Warden? Councillor Guédon?
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Councillor McGillis for the position of warden.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that nomination? Councillor?
Yes.
Thank you. So there are 2 nominations on the floor. Are there any further nominations? Okay, nominations are closed. We will commence the voting, starting with Councillor McDonald in the Warden's room in just a moment.
Speak first.
Forget. We can now, you can provide remarks. Councillor McDonald, sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Warden. I had a 1-hour speech prepared, but this is the first time that you're actually going to finish before noon, so I'll keep it very brief. I feel that I'm excited about the upcoming term, the next 3 years. We've been given a roadmap with our strategic plan, and my goal is to work with members of council and members of staff to push this strategic plan and complete everything in this term. So I think I can provide the leadership for that. I'm experienced, as is the Councillor McGillis. I've been warden in 2016, 2018, so I think I still have lots of connections up in Toronto and within the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, so I think that I can provide some leadership there as well. Also, I want to continue our partnerships with our local municipalities, and which includes, us reaching out so that the members of council, not the mayor and deputy mayor, are receiving updates so that, because we oftentimes get from our own councils, I'm sure you do as well, that, what do you guys do there? And I think it's important that we continue to work with our local municipalities, so I look forward to that. So thank you, Mr. Warden, for allowing me a brief moment for comments.
Thank you. You're welcome. Councillor McGillis.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. My speech is a little bit more formal, but and I agree, we've been around here a long time, Councillor McDonald, sitting across from each other. It's an absolute honor to sit here before you to announce my candidacy for the position of Warden of SDG. This community means the world to me, and having served on municipal council for over 25 years is a testament to that. We live in a region of great potential. We faced our fair share of challenges, but it's these challenges that have molded SDG into a resilient, close-knit community. As your potential warden, my vision is a clear one. I envision an economically thriving region where businesses can flourish and our residents can find meaningful work right here at home. And I think we're on the right track, what we're doing here with some of the ideologies that we're moving forward, and we're on the right track moving closely for Skills Ontario, and I know that Tara Kirkpatrick has taken the lead on this and the initiative, and what she's doing is having job fairs and things like that and talking to colleges to bring back the trades so that we can have the workforce to build 1.5 million affordable homes in Ontario. This is the province's objective that equates to 7,000 homes in Eastern Ontario. We need to continue our efforts and appeal to the province, the provincial government especially, to review all existing municipal infrastructure funding and finance programs that allow for smaller communities to provide servicing for new housing developments. This would be beneficial to assist the government in attaining the 2020 or 31 housing objectives. Secondly, encouraging the growth of affordable housing, both in the not-for-profit and non-market sectors. This will ensure that all Ontarians have access to affordable homes, and all levels of government need to support the full continuum of the affordable housing. We need to make this a priority to focus on expediting development applications to assist our partners, the business community, and more importantly, our constituents. I'm also looking forward to working with Council, as Councillor McDonald mentioned, and staff as well in achieving our goals in our strategic plan. But we all can't achieve this vision alone. It's the people of SDNG together, working together, who have the power to shape this destiny. Together we can build a stronger, more prosperous future for our families and neighbors and generations to come. So I humbly ask for your support in this journey. So let's work hand in hand to create a region that we all can be proud of, a place where our children and grandchildren can thrive. With your trust and support, I'm confident that we can achieve great things together. I do have the time to do this job. Started back when I was first council in 1988. I'm starting to show my age there now, but over the years, it's been over 25 years as a member of council and the county. So I would appreciate your support, and looking forward to the next 3 years with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGillis, and thank you, Councillor McDonald, for your comments, and to you, Councillor McGillis, for your comments at this point. Madam Clerk.
We will now commence the voting in just a moment, starting with Councillor McDonald, making our way around and ending with Councillor Fraser and then Councillor Guénon.
Excuse me, fellow councillors. Just a friendly reminder, if you're going to talk about me specifically, we're still live, so just for caution's sake. Please continue. Just let you know that we're out there in the. No one did. Just that we're still on and we're still live. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Council, for voting. Myself and the CAO have tallied the votes, and Councillor McDonald, you are the successful candidate for the position of Warden for 2024. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Councillor McDonald, and thank you very much, Councillor McGillis, for putting your name forward. Madam Clerk, as we roll through, yes, thank you.
Just want to congratulate Councillor McDonald, and I know you'll do a good job for the next year, and I want to thank Councillor Gato for nominating me, and also Councillor Bergeron as well. So looking forward to working with you the next year, and there's other years, right? There's other years. We've got 2 more years after your wardenship, so good luck, and wish you the best.
Thank you, Councillor McGillis, and to Councillor McDonald, I open the microphone to you as well.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Councillor McGillis, for your words. We certainly will be having to work together to achieve everything we want to achieve in this term. Thank you to Councillor Landry and Councillor St. Pierre for nominating me, and to all the members of council. I'll work hard, and I'm always available, so please call me anytime. And I, again, want to work as a team, and I look at the staff as well. We have a great staff here, and I look forward to working with you guys as well. And I just want to thank the warden. I know we'll be thanking him down the road, and I guess I get to introduce you on Saturday, so I get to say some really bad things about you. But thank you for your leadership through this term, and look forward to continuing to work with you. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And at this point, I'd like to ask the clerk, as we go through, there's no motions, no petitions. We've hit the miscellaneous business. The closed session, we received the information.
Yes.
Just the minutes, and we have that. And if you will have the ratification bylaw, please.
It's moved by Councillor Bergeron, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that bylaw number 5420, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. And before we have the adjournment resolution, I just want to thank everyone for the participation today, and my apologies for rushing at times. We have another schedule we have to keep, and I'm off by 10 seconds, so I think I've done well. But again, thank you very much to the 2 councillors who put their name forward. I look forward to the remainder of this term of County Council, to the comments made by both. We have moved forward, and we will continue to move forward as a group that is supporting the efforts of SDG, being mindful of our lower tiers and the needs of all constituents throughout SDG. My thanks again go out, as has been expressed, to staff for getting us to this point, and I look forward to the next meeting or two, and then we'll hand over everything to Councillor McDonald. If I could have the resolution, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Williams, that council adjourn to the call of the chair.
All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. Until we meet again, take care and enjoy your time. Thank you.